G'day and welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here with me today. Welcome back, and I hope you're doing well. This is episode 1144, and my guest today is Dr. Aimie Apigian, and we're discussing her book, The Biology of Trauma. What a fantastic conversation this was. A long one too, guys, long format today, so brace yourself and get ready. Lots of really cool insights, and we're discussing Amy's journey into the biology of trauma, which was triggered in her own life by some very deep grief that she experienced in 2014 that led to chronic fatigue syndrome and autoimmunity as well. So she shares her story, but then we unpack that as to what she's learnt and how the body actually holds onto this trauma and how the body works really to protect us. It's a survival mechanism, right? So we talk about the vagus nerve, we talk about stress, the difference between stress and trauma, and the responses associated with the two, and we go in depth. So really cool. She puts it in words that makes it easy to understand and easy to unpack, and a lot of great insights. So we do a little quick practice in there as well with me, which was quite insightful too. So really cool show, guys. Check it out. All the show notes at thehiddenwhy.com. Links to Amy's website there as well, and of course her books. So pick up a copy, support the show by using the links in our show notes there, and we'll chat at the other end. G'day, Amy. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
It is great to be here. Thank you.
It's exciting. You got some exciting work.
I do. Well, you do exciting and great work. So we get to collide our worlds together today.
I get to explore fields, which is great.
Yes.
The biology of trauma.
Right? Not the psychology of trauma, the biology of trauma.
Yeah, interesting topic, huh? I want to start with what led you into this field of work. Like, what was the turning point for you to go down the biology of trauma? Because everyone thinks of trauma as psychological processing, and I don't know. I talked to a lot of people about this.
Yeah, my turning point was in 2014 when my own grief that I was experiencing turned into chronic fatigue syndrome and autoimmunity.
Right. 2014. What were you doing in 2014?
In 2014, I went through the hardest thing that I will ever go through. And the grief of that loss and that transition for me made me so sick that 1 month later, I found myself the patient, not the doctor. I was a general surgery resident at that time. And I woke up and I could not get out of bed one morning. And all the tests, did all the things. I became that patient that was like, it's all in your head. The labs look relatively normal. You're obviously not feeling well, but yet we have no clear explanation for it. So they gave me the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. And then later we discovered that some of my autoimmune markers were really high. And it was literally on the heels 1 month later following the hardest grief that I've experienced.
Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, don't mind sharing at all. So in 2008, I became a foster parent.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had 2 foster children, and I decided to adopt one of them. Except I was single and in medical school.
Right.
I had no idea how I was going to do it. But I also could not imagine letting Miguel, was his name, stay in the foster care system because of how much more he had been traumatized in the system. And he had been in the foster care system since age 9 months. He was 4 when I got him. And so by the time he was 5 was when I was adopting him.
Yeah.
I had him for 6 years. And I share a lot of this in my book and the story of what were all the pieces that he needed for his freedom from the past, because his symptoms were so severe, which is why no one else had adopted him. And he was just burning through foster care home after foster care home. And so I took him in, and it was so hard and meaningful and beautiful and confusing. All of the things, Leigh, all of the things. And by the end of it, I did find all the pieces that he needed. And
When you say
I
all the
realized
pieces he needed, what do you mean by that?
all of the, if like all of the different types of therapy modalities, it wasn't just one thing that he needed. It wasn't just like, oh, just take him to this one therapy and he'll be fine, or just put him on this medication and he'll be fine. I
Right.
opted not the medication route, even though that is what the psychiatrist strongly recommended, because
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't the root of the issue. So I kept finding this therapy, that therapy. Let's try this. Let's try that. And it was a very long process of just trying everything that I could find to try to help him.
Yeah.
And by the end of that process, and it was the end because I finally found the last piece that he needed. Otherwise, there would not have been the end to his struggle to open himself up to my love. And this was one of the things that shocked me the most, was I had assumed that what hurting children who had trauma, clearly had trauma, what they needed was love. And that was what would heal them.
Right.
I didn't realize that love was what was terrifying for them. And so the more I loved him, the more he would push me away, hurt me. And that was the story that I start with my book, actually, was a moment in a rocking chair with him where he tells me, Mommy, I'm going to kill you tomorrow.
Jeez.
And the more I loved him, the more scared he was. And so the more he lashed out
Yeah.
and pushed me away.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
so this was where I started with trauma, is thinking one thing and realizing that the exact opposite was actually true. Even though, yes, they do need love, but they won't take it in. And he became a mirror to me and actually showed me quite a few of my own attachment insecurities that I had. I didn't even know about it. I'd never thought of that. I'd never seen myself as having attachment trauma, because my childhood was, well, compared to his, it was great.
Yeah.
So who was I to have ever thought that I had trauma? But
It's
for all
probably a
this,
common theme with a lot of people. Like, if you have a good upbringing, you sort of go, oh, why would I have trauma? Based on some of the stories you hear.
so many people. And this is what I started to see in my work as a physician. So all along the way, I'm still in medical school, and then I'm in residency. I'm doing surgery residency, and I'm seeing things that I never saw before after having adopted my son, because people would say something now, or they'd have a certain look, or they'd come in with their spouse, and I would see a dynamic exchange between them, and I'd be like, huh, isn't that interesting? I'm seeing trauma patterns. I'm seeing these things that come from trauma, but yet they're not recognizing it. They're not even realizing that their body is holding it, let alone that it is contributing to their current health issue.
Right. No, I wouldn't recognize it.
And then it became me. And I was like, oh, shoot, I guess I have to do my own trauma work. Who knew?
So that process of, sorry, Miguel, wasn't it?
Yes.
Fostering Miguel. So what led to the trauma for you? Like, was it just that
Yeah.
whole process of?
Well, yes, and so much of my trauma pattern from my childhood had been to become what we say, like I took on a role in my family. And the role that I took on, unconsciously, of course, because that's what we do as children, I took on the role of being the people fixer. Also the people pleaser, but more the people fixer. Anyone who had any problem, anyone who was hurting, anyone who needed help, I was going to be the people fixer. That was the role that I took on. And I did this primarily for my father, who needed a lot of emotional buffer and stabilization. And I, as the daughter, provided that for him without realizing what I was doing.
Right.
And fast forward, that role did not just fall away when I left my family of origin and my childhood home. I took it with me. So now I'm going through college, and anyone who still needs help, and I'm like, sure, I will sacrifice myself to help you. I
Yeah.
will put my needs on the back burner so that I can take care of your needs.
Yeah.
Not ever even realizing what I was doing or that it was unhealthy.
Mm.
And this was so much for me, also a part of becoming a physician. A physician allowed me to be a people fixer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
True.
spent most of my life completely ignoring my own body, other than to make demands of it and tell it what to do, and then get frustrated when it wouldn't keep up or wouldn't be able to perform at the level that I wanted it to, or it started to get
Mm.
fat and chubby, and I was like, oh, what is this? You're gross, you're ugly. And then it started to get sick and get exhausted, and I'm like, you're broken, what's wrong with you? Come on, don't you know you're supposed to be able to keep up? So that had been my relationship with my body
Yeah.
for all of my life.
Mm.
And that was the primary way in which my own trauma was showing up even as an adult, and why then it was building underneath the surface, so that then after 6 years, and I make the very hard and awful decision to adopt Miguel out to another family, it broke me. It didn't just break my heart. My broken heart was more than what my body could handle.
Mm.
And it what made me very sick.
But you said you woke up one morning and just couldn't get out of bed. I mean, what were the symptoms you were feeling? Was it just depression, or was it lethargy, or?
Yeah, right. Like that's what that's what we asked. Like, why won't my body move?
Yeah.
The fatigue had gotten so bad, and it was a physical fatigue. So, for example, what happened was that I was on transplant surgery rotation. Of all the surgical rotations, that one I feel pushes you quite a lot, if not the most. I
Mm.
remember being on starting that rotation. And the very first day that I start that rotation, I'm in third year general surgery residency, and I didn't come home for 36 hours, and we did 3 surgeries straight all through the night.
Yeah.
And
Is that even allowed?
that was normal. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the regular. I could predict that, and I was on call every third night. So you work all day the other days, and then every third day you're working not only all day but all night, and then you're finally able to go home the following morning after everyone else comes in. Every third day, I was up all night with these transplant surgeries. That's how busy it was. And
Crazy.
so that, again, all of this is building underneath the surface. I'm completely unaware of that because I'm looking around me. I see other people doing it. So I have the expectation that my body's going to be able to keep up. But it was right on the heels of this broken heart of
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
And in my book, I talk about this capacity concept. And we only have a certain capacity. And the more that our physical health is compromised, the less capacity we have for things like grief, like
Mm.
loss, like change.
Does
And
capacity vary within each individual, or do we all have the same?
absolutely. No. And it varies throughout the day. And it varies one day from the other, depending on what you ate, depending on how you slept, depending on who you had a fight with.
Yeah.
It's a very dynamic process. It's like the dashboard on a car when you're driving. It's very dynamic. It's picking up not only the level of gas in the tank, but it's picking up the oil levels, picking up the tire pressures, picking up the road conditions. And it's very dynamic so that as the driver, you can see everything that's going on. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with our nervous system, which is the system in our body and physiology that's designed to keep us alive no matter what.
Right.
So it's collecting this information, and it's making a decision about your current capacity. Well, my current capacity at that time was 0. I was running a deficit, if anything. And so then at that point, you add on and I'm going to take this relationship that you thought was a forever relationship. You thought you were always going to be his mom. You thought you were his forever mom now. And that identity of being a mom has meant so much to you. And we're just going to blow that up. And we're going to take it away from you. And it's going to be sudden, and it's going to be unexpected, and it's going to be awful. It's going to be the worst thing that you've ever felt. And you're going to watch how it hurts him and how it affects other people. And that's going to tear your heart apart, because how can, like the idea of causing someone else pain, and add that to my capacity.
Existing schedule. Yeah.
Exactly. And no wonder, right? I look back and say, well, it was predictable, but we don't often see it coming if you're a person like me, because you are so used to not paying attention to your body. You're not watching the signs. You're thinking, oh, I'm just tired. Let me grab one more cup of coffee. Oh, I need to push through this. Let me, snack a little bit. Let me go for a run. Let me do some cryotherapy. Let me do this. Let me do this. And you're finding every possible way to push through, rather than actually listen to your body, look at that dashboard and say, hey, we're getting pretty low in our gas. Maybe we should pause and refuel. That was never a thought process for me. And again, for me, that goes back to, because that was my own trauma pattern. My own trauma pattern was perfectionism, people fixing, and pushing through.
That whole capacity thing, I mean, it links to a lot of the behaviors that we do that aren't actually helping us fix the low level of capacity, right? We go out there and continue to, like you said, push on or eat more glorious food because it makes us feel good, but it actually doesn't.
It actually doesn't. It's actually
help what's existing.
Draining the little capacity that we have.
Yeah.
But it masks it maybe for a moment, right? It for a second, it makes us feel better.
Yeah.
And so that's why our brain is like, no, it does help me feel better. No, it does help me function. It does help me cope. And so we continue to do these adaptive. It just
builds up and builds up and builds up.
That build up until it just one day can't keep going.
So when you talk about trauma, it's not so much an event, but rather biology or something stored in our system? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, what a great question. And this is, for me, the beautiful thing about understanding the science is that I can look at the body and I can say, it was trauma if your body went into the trauma response. And this is what that means to go into the trauma response.
What's a trauma response?
Yeah, if there aren't these specific changes in our physiology, then that was just stressful, which is still significant. I'm not saying that stress wasn't significant. I'm just that for
so stress and trauma, different things.
Different physiology.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do we recognize? Well, you keep going with the explanation.
Well, that's just it. There are so many things that have been labeled as stress that are actually not stress. They're actually the trauma response, but we just haven't had the language to use that. And so we call things burnout. No, burnout is actually the trauma physiology.
Right.
Or we'll call it chronic. Right? Like you've had that, I've had that. So maybe let's call it chronic stress. And then we'll say it's the chronic stress that's bad. No, your body has two different states of responding to danger, either a stress response or a trauma response.
Right.
But it doesn't, nothing, there is no chronic stress. It's either stress or trauma response.
So is that a confusion with people, like chronic stress being actually trauma?
Yes. And then this is where
not stress.
It's stressful to, look at this comparison, but the research is all messed up then as well, because the research calls it chronic stress, not realizing that, no, you're not talking about stress. You're talking about it's become more than just stress. So the difference between the two is very significant for people to know. And the stress response is something that is fueled by adrenaline and it gives you energy. The trauma response is fueled by the vagus nerve and it shuts down your energy.
Right.
Energy. You feel depleted. You feel heavy. It feels hard to move. You really just want to lay there and curl up into a ball and pull the covers over your head and make the world go away.
So is this stress response related to more an event? Like it,
not
or is
necessarily.
no?
No, because the stress response is not even related to danger. It's related to a challenge. It's related to a demand that requires an upregulation of your energy to do something about it. So my body goes into a stress response when I am going out there to run a marathon, or I'm to do physical exercise and I'm going to sprint and do that high intensity interval training that they're talking about. That's a stress on my body because it's a demand that's I'm rising up to the occasion. I'm making more energy in order to take action and do movement.
Yes.
That's what the stress response is.
Okay.
The stress response is all about doing something, taking action. And that's why it's driven by adrenaline, because that is the hormone that moves us to action.
Right. So it's when a high level of demand is expected in your life, that stress kicks in. And that can be a good thing too. Like it's not necessarily a negative.
Yes, and those people who are high performers, they are generally people who know how to use their adrenaline to generate a stress response when they need it, when they've got something important to do, and they've got something important to show up for. So, and that's one of the key differentiators between stress, which is something that can grow us, versus trauma, which there is no growth in overwhelm.
So you say, stress uses adrenaline to create energy to push us through that moments of high level of demand, whereas the trauma response is linked to the vagus nerve, I think you said.
It is, which is crazy because we've got all this buzz about the vagus nerve and how great the vagus nerve is, and activate the vagus nerve and stimulate the vagus nerve and increase your vagal tone. So why would we say that the trauma response is mediated by the vagus nerve? The vagus nerve is a nerve that runs from your brainstem and it runs down your throat, behind your esophagus, spreads out over your stomach, dives into your digestive system, helps create that nervous system. And it's just a nerve, meaning it's just the train tracks.
It's a popular nerve at the moment, isn't it? This vagus nerve.
I know, it's gotten a lot of attention.
Hmm.
It is, and it is the longest nerve, so it is significant, but it's just a nerve. Meaning, as a surgeon, I have operated on the vagus nerve. I have cut the vagus nerve. It's just fibers.
How big is this nerve? Like what, when you say you cut it, like, I mean, you say it comes down here through there and then spreads out, like quite noticeable then, is it?
Well, yes, absolutely. And that's why for certain conditions, that is part of what that recommended treatment is for that surgery, for example. But it has all of these branches, right? And so it has branches that go to your face. It's what innervates your facial muscles that allows you and I to connect with each other and be able to give each other these nonverbal facial expressions that say, I am safe to talk to, I am safe to connect with. It even controls like the muscles around our eyes, things that we aren't consciously thinking of, but it is part of that survival system that says it helps me survive when I have friends. So I want to change even the muscles around my eyes that would tell you she's a safe friend to have. So the vagus nerve is just a nerve, meaning it depends on which train is going to run down those train tracks. and we have two different trains that can run down the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
One of those trains is what's called the parasympathetic train. And it is what everybody knows about. Parasympathetic being that rest and digest mode. It's the calm and safe. It's the creative. It's the connection. And that's why there's the buzz about the vagus nerve, because that is one of the trains that can run down the train tracks.
Right.
However, I want us to think about the stress response, that adrenaline, as we're driving a car and we've got our foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
So if that is the stress response, what happens in a trauma response is that the size of the danger, there is a danger that appears that feels so big that it paralyzes us. And in that moment, our body throws on the emergency brake, even though our foot is still on the gas pedal. That emergency brake is this vagus nerve, but now it's a different train running down that track. It's called the dorsal vagus stimulation. And that is where the body says, it is dangerous for me to move right now. It's dangerous for me to take action, because taking action would actually further put me into danger. Instead, what I now need to do, the best way for me to survive an inescapable life threat, is for me to immobilize. Stop breathing, stop moving, stop trying to escape, start saving my energy, stop caring what's happening to me, because that also takes up energy. My breath slows down and becomes very shallow. My heart is no longer racing necessarily. It has that initial shock, and then it just kind of goes into this collapse. This is the trauma response. And we can see that coming from the high energy and go, go, go of the stress response, this is a complete opposite. It's like racing a car and then hitting a wall. You come to a stop. And now the car's just sitting there. That's what the trauma response does to our body and our physiology. And how it stops us is by sending a certain train down those tracks of the vagus nerve to tell everything, stop, just stop. Whatever you're doing, just stop. It's better for us to just shut down for a moment.
So what is the primary purpose of the vagus nerve? Sounds like muchly a survival thing for our human body.
Absolutely. The whole nervous system. So every single nerve that we have, the whole nervous system is designed as part of the larger survival system that makes decisions for us on how to best survive every moment and anything that we might go through. And so here we have, for me, right? Like I'll go back to my story of this tremendous grief. And my body said, my vagus nerve said, you know what? It's not safe for us to feel this much grief. I think I might die if I were to allow myself to feel this much grief. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to protect you. I'm going to disconnect you. I'm going to make you go numb a little bit. And it's going to protect you from feeling all of that, even though it will come at a cost, because that means that you won't really be able to feel joy and happiness.
Right.
But it will protect you and it will keep you alive. So it's the best strategy at this moment, given that we cannot let ourselves feel this much grief because we think we're going to die.
What makes the vagus nerve so unique to all the nervous system? Is it because of that communication?
Exactly. It's able to collect information that then it sends that information to the areas of the brain where it's collecting even more information. So the vagus nerve, because it runs all the way down to our gut, it's able to bring up all of that information from our gut. And I'll probably not be surprised if you tell me that when you get stressed or when you're whatever, having some type of emotional response, you likely feel it in your gut. There's something that happens in your gut. For some people, they describe it as a knife turning or a twisting, or my gut just goes queasy. But our gut is very sensitive to emotional responses. And our vagus nerve picks all of that up and it sends it up to the brain that says, hey, this is what's going on down there. I think there's a problem. I think there's danger. It's also the nerve that will collect information about inflammation. And many people in our toxic world that we live in have a lot of gut inflammation. That is information that's going to travel up the vagus nerve. Sometimes even the inflammation travels up the vagus nerve, causing brain inflammation. And now our whole nervous system is surrounded by this inflammation, and that is perceived as danger. And we go into a trauma response, not realizing that it's because of our own biology. We're assuming that our partner is stressing us out too much, and they just sent us over the edge into overwhelm. Or the situation at work, wow, I didn't realize that it was that big of a problem, and now I'm going into overwhelm. We often not realize that so much of our overwhelm and these trauma responses are due to our own biology and the amount of danger that it's signaling that says we are in an inescapable life threat with all this inflammation and need to take a pause, conserve our energy, and then we'll be able to come out and hopefully do something about it.
Does it go in the opposite direction, Doctor? The psychology processes in the brain telling our vagus nerve, hey, like telling fibs sometimes, telling it what we think we believe?
Absolutely. Yes. And this is where we see that the brain is kind of where the other sensory information comes in. So what we see, right? So whatever we see is coming into our eyes, which is then being processed by our ocular region in the brain. And then that can inform the vagus nerve, like, whoa, we see danger. We see danger. We need to either move into stress mode. And then the vagus nerve says, okay, I'll take a back seat and let that sympathetic nervous system pump out adrenaline. Or it says, no, this danger that we see is so overwhelming, we just need to shut down, which is why it's so important to watch and guard what we allow in, whether that's what we're watching, social media, because when we watch a bad thing happen to someone else and we can't do anything about it, we're almost training our nervous system to just go into overwhelm. If there's something that we can do about it, well, that's the stress response. And there's not the damage to our own health.
Right, that makes sense, yeah.
So this is where media becomes actually a really important decision for someone when their nervous system says, I'm watching this really bad thing happen to someone else, and I'm just watching, and I can't do anything about it. So people need to really be aware of what
that gets stored as trauma.
It does, because the brain doesn't register, oh no, that's not real, or that's not in my neighborhood, or that's across the other side of the world. Yeah. It's registering that I just saw this happen. And your body will naturally say, well, then I need to do something about it. And yet then the rest of our body says, but I can't, because it's on a TV screen. It's on my phone. It's on social media. And so that's when we get like caught up into this emotional response. And it just becomes this loop between stress and overwhelm inside of us, because there's so much more that we are exposed to and not able to respond like we would need to in order to move through a stress.
Right. So just trying to understand trauma now a little bit more clearly from your viewpoint. It's not necessarily an event that's happened in the past. It's a sequence of just life building up, is it? Like, how do you define that?
It's a sequence of steps that happen in our physiology, and it's an escalation of steps. So going back to the idea of danger, if I'm having an ordinary day and all of a sudden I see something, well, my body is going to shift into that sympathetic or stress mode because there's danger.
Yep.
And the first line of response is always the stress response. Let me first try to do something about it. And so now I'm in that stress response as a survival response. But if I try to do something and it's not enough, my body is going to what I call escalate into the next level of survival response, which is not to do something because I already tried that and that didn't work. So if that didn't work, the next level of survival response is to go into the trauma response.
Shut down.
Shut down.
So you talk about what is it, fight and flight or freeze?
Yes.
Are they trauma responses or are they adrenaline stress responses?
Well, they are trauma responses, but what precedes them is the adrenaline. We can never have a trauma response without having first gone through a stress response.
Right. Okay.
So in that moment of fawning or freezing, there is still a lot of adrenaline in our system because that's what just was there a second ago. But now something changed. And what changed was realizing that it's too big of a problem for me. Doing something is not going to help me overcome it. I can't overcome it. So if the stress response fueled by adrenaline is like the sprint, I go into freeze or fawn as soon as I realize I can't finish the race. And my body says, well, if you can't win the race, if I can't finish the race, then we should just stop now.
Yeah.
Because at least if I stop now, I might save some of the energy that I don't want to now waste if it's not going to make a difference. And that's a key aspect of the trauma response, is that feeling of there's nothing I can do to make this bad thing stop. I've exhausted my resources. I've exhausted my options. I've tried that and it didn't work. Or the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is that sometimes our body, our nervous system can be programmed to automatically assume that I'm not big enough, that I'm not strong enough, that I'm not smart enough. And so why even try? And it goes so fast to that stress response and immediately goes into the fawn, to the freeze, to the shutdown, because it's been programmed to believe that everything that's hard is too hard for me.
How does it get programmed to believe that? That's just through upbringing and what we've told ourselves?
Yes, and this actually is a beautiful manifestation of the work that was done by Seligman back in the 1960s. And he did research, unfortunately, sadly, on dogs that showed exactly how we get programmed to do this. And he took a group of dogs and he put them into this container, and half of them he tied to the wall with their harness. And on the floor of that container was an electrical shock pad. There was a small, short barrier that was easy for the dogs to jump over. And on the other side of that barrier, there was a place where there was no electrical shock. Right. So you have these two sides, a small barrier, a group of dogs, half of them are tied up.
Yeah.
He turns on the shock.
Yeah.
What do dogs do? Dogs try to escape, right? That's what we would do as humans. We all try to escape. We first try to do something because that's our stress response to danger. And the group that is not tied up, they successfully jump over that barrier, land on the other side, and they're like, "Woof, we're good. We overcame. We can now return to safety." And right, they're the ones that are fine. They don't get sick. But what happened to the dogs who were tied to the wall? Did they try to jump over the barrier? Well, yes, they tried, because that's what they saw.
That's a good example.
Yeah. So they tried, But here's what happened. They were unsuccessful. No matter how hard they tried, they could not jump over the wall.
Yeah.
And they're watching their friends, and their friends are jumping over the wall. And they're automatically starting to believe that, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. I'm different. I don't deserve anything different.
Mm.
So here's what happened. He did the same experiment with the same group of dogs. This time did not tie any of them up to the wall. He did the exact same thing. He turned on the shock. The dogs who had jumped over before, this wasn't even a stress for them now. It was an inconvenience. Oh man, the shock again. They jump over the barrier. They go to the other side. They're fine. The dogs who had been tied up before, do you know what happened?
They just shut down.
They didn't even try. They shut down. But they weren't tied up this time. But they had come to believe that they couldn't. And this is how trauma becomes our body, like our tissues. They did, thankfully, learn, figure out how to help these dogs become dogs again.
Yeah.
And what they had to do was the treats didn't work, bonuses and incentives didn't work. Nothing else worked other than going in, and actually the trainers moved their leg muscles in the jumping position and helped them over the barrier the first time. And then the dogs could jump over the next time that they did the experiment and turn the shock on. They literally had to learn the movement again and record it as it is possible and I can do it.
Interesting. Wow, poor dogs.
I know. And so this is what happens to humans.
So does that memory get stored in cells? Like, how does that get stored to then tell the nervous system that when that situation comes up, I can't do this?
Yeah, it's called being coupled. So it's stored in the tissues, meaning the muscles, the muscle memory. I don't know about you, but I play a musical instrument. I played the piano growing up, and I could learn a song, memorize it, and play the whole piece of music without looking at the music.
Yeah.
Why? Because of my muscle memory. My muscles knew where to move, how to move, without me having to think about it. It's called muscle memory.
Yeah.
That's what trauma becomes. Trauma becomes a muscle memory that when something hard happens, my body says, oh, no, we know that song. And this is how that song ends. And it plays the end of that song without me even having a choice about it. It's programmed to play the same song, which is, I'm a failure. I can't do it. I should just roll over and feel sorry for myself.
Yeah. So when you look at traditional, trauma therapies, they delve into the past, and I hear this a lot. What are your thoughts on that now from what you've studied?
Well, let's just base it off of that study with Seligman and his dogs.
Yeah.
The past is what programmed us to believe that it was too hard for us. It was too big for us. And so if I'm going to go back into that story, into that same story, I'm going to just relive the same emotions, but have the same response.
Isn't the idea to sort of go back to that story so we can then unpack it and break it apart to discard that limiting belief?
Exactly. So how do we actually do that? Well, what Seligman showed was that it had nothing to do with dog treats. It had nothing to do with anything. Nothing else worked except working at the body level to actually change the muscle memory of, no, we don't need to go into overwhelm. We can move into action. We can do something about it. And that's where a lot of people go wrong with therapy, is that they're sitting on a chair or on a couch and they're not doing anything. They're not engaging their body. So they're not changing the muscle memory. They're repeating the same thing by just sitting there, re-experiencing all these emotions, but not doing something about it.
Yeah.
So the same muscle memory is playing out. I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to feel it, and I'm not going to do anything, which means that I'm just going to be overwhelmed by those experiences. I started that because that was what I knew to do trauma work, right? So I signed up for this kind of trauma therapy, and I would have assumed that I was doing some great work, had a great session because we talked about a lot and I cried a lot. And I think that means that I did good work in therapy that day.
Yeah.
But what happened was, because I already had this chronic health issue, because I already had my chronic fatigue and my autoimmunity, I was able to get messages from my body that I think I would have missed if I didn't have those. And what would happen is I would have a therapy session that was just like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I would come home, and a few hours later, I would be back in my exhaustion. My fatigue would have flared up. My inflammation from the autoimmunity would have flared up. And I would be laying on the couch, snuggling up with a tub of ice cream and eating ice cream while I'm binge watching movies, completely zoning out. And I'm like, this can't be actually what it means to heal. Because if I thought healing meant I was going to be more present, more alive, and I'm actually numbing with this ice cream and these movies. I'm zoning out. My body's telling me, whoa, we just got overwhelmed and we're back in my physical health symptoms. Something must not be right here. I must be doing too much. I must be reliving rather than resolving. Now that's a concept. Okay, so what is it actually that I need to do to be able to work on a story to resolve it rather than go into a story and just relive it?
Yeah. And it can't be the one story then. If you get to that point where your body's feeling it and your body's in this shutdown mode, it's a whole group of things, right? It's not just that one particular event of your past. It's everything just accumulating on each other.
Exactly. It's like these threads, right?
So talking about that one time is not necessarily going to do it. But what this leads us to, again, I mean, your methods around healing then, because you talk about, you're sitting there, you're reliving this story in a therapy session, which actually doesn't help healing because you're not doing anything about it. How do you actually do something about that particular trauma?
Yeah. Great question. So I'll have you do something with me to show you where we start. This is where people start. I'm going to ask you, is there any place uncomfortable in your body right now? As you do just a quick body check, anything that just feels uncomfortable for any reason that we don't need to analyze why.
Yeah, my feet.
Your feet. Okay. So what I want you to do is give me a number for the level of discomfort of your feet right now.
No, it's not too bad. 6.
6. Wonderful. Okay. So what we're going to do now is you're going to copycat me. We're going to take a deep breath in, and we're just going to say the sound VU, 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 all the way out until our breath is completely out. And while we do that, I want you to bring your hands up to your shoulders as close as possible. And you're going to move them away and just like push an imaginary rock away while we make that sound with our breath.
Like do.
Yep. So hands up and deep breath in. And just bring your arms to rest now. We give that a second. We pause because this is where the vagus nerve comes into play. Something has just shifted inside of us, and it takes time for that information to travel up our vagus nerve to our brain. So now put your attention back on your feet and give me the new number.
4.
What? How did that just happen?
Is it the vibration of VU that helps stimulate the vagus nerve?
It is actually. Yeah. And this movement of our muscles. Again, we're doing something about it, right? Like we're moving, we're taking action. And if there's this imaginary rock that's like coming in on me, I can push it away. I can create some space to breathe. And having space to breathe makes me feel safer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when we feel safer, it changes things in our body. And these areas of tension and bracing that we're just like, oh, I should go get a massage or whatever. Actually, if we just helped our body feel safer right now in the present moment, it wouldn't need to be bracing. It wouldn't need to be tense. It wouldn't need these contraction patterns that are what we do when we need to be in protection mode rather than connection mode.
Right.
That's where people start. So people come to me
Sounds
and
very much a spiritual sort of process rather than a take these medications and help your pain. And
you can call it spiritual. I call it physiological.
well, it's a level of awareness, isn't it?
What I just did was helped you shift your inner physiology, your inner state. Just brought it down a little further down that edge of amping up into anxiety, amping up into survival mode. And we just brought it down a few notches by pushing something imaginary way and making this VU sound. So I'm shifting your physiology. That's where people start. People think that they should start by telling someone what happened to them. No, where we start is learning how to create a physiological shift inside of us right now towards feeling safer so that our body can get used to feeling safer and not always in survival mode. Once we can do that, and I give it at least 3 weeks, 21 days of these kinds of exercises.
But doing it a couple of times a day or just whenever you're feeling a bit of pain or
yeah. But I need someone to be able to feel like I can shift my inner state when I'm getting into anxiety. When I'm getting into overwhelm, I know what to do. I'm going to stop. I'm going to make this silly, ridiculous sound called VU. I'm going to push something away. And it works.
You ever done that in the crowd?
Some people do it while they're driving. Some people do it, hey, whatever works for people. But I teach them enough exercises. These are just two. I teach them enough exercises that no matter where they are or what's going on, they can do something in the moment right now when they realize they've lost their sense of safety. And we're going to recreate that sense of safer because it changes their physiology. And that's where people start. Then once they get really good at that, it's safe to talk about a story, because as soon as you're talking about a story, you're like, whoa, I'm starting to feel some emotions that feel like too much. Okay, well, let's pause the story and we know what to do now. We can do that VU sound and we can do that push away. We can do whatever of the other 21 exercises that I have that allow us to then work on a story, but stay feeling safe enough to be present, safe enough to stay connected, stay enough to feel what's coming up so that we can move through it, which is how we resolve it, rather than just stir it and relive it and then still be stuck with the overwhelm of it.
So what is the VU push away? How is that? I mean, how is it sending a message to the vagus nerve that then tells the body that actually this is okay? Like what's going on there?
I know, isn't that interesting? So there are all of these, what I call neuroscience hacks. And once you understand the body's anatomy, you will understand what are some of the things that we can do. So knowing that the vagus nerve runs right along the vocal cords, I know that with humming or with this VU sound, it's vibrating and it's just a gentle vibration. So I'm not worried about opening up some of that stored trauma like breath work can do, where, wow, if I'm doing some intense breath work, that may trigger some of that opening up of the trauma that's been stored from the vagus nerve, not just the parasympathetic that's been stored. So I know it's a gentle way to just create safer by that gentle vibration. But I also know that, for example, I know that if I'm looking at something close up, there's that sense of claustrophobia. Whereas if I can look far away, my nervous system says, oh, if I have the luxury to look far away and I can see that there's no danger coming towards me, I can feel safer.
Yeah.
Same thing with the rock, right? Like if I feel like, oh my goodness, the world is caving in on me, I'm going to push it away. Oh, can regain some space to think, space to be, space to breathe. That feels safer. And that's really what we're going for. We're not setting the standard for it has to be 100% safe. I'm thrilled when people come in and say, oh, this tension is at a 6. And in 30 seconds, it just dropped to a 4. That's safer. Wonderful. We'll start with safer. That's a great place to start. And that's where I would want people to start. Don't start with safety.
Yeah. I love it. What a great flow. What can people expect from your book? Like obviously reading about what we've just discussed. Is there also practical tools in there and
yeah, so they get the roadmap for knowing the science of why to start with safety and not the story.
Yeah.
They get the sequence of here's what the healing journey looks like. They understand that there are different things that we will want to focus on at different phases. There's different stages. And many people are starting and trying to do the work of stage 3 at the very beginning, not having laid the foundation of stage 1 and stage 2. And so it's really helpful for them to know where, of all of the options of the different therapies that I can do, where do I start? What do I do? And how do I create and facilitate this like shift from biology of trauma to a biology of safety and then a biology of healing? And it's possible when we look at, there are 3 levels that we'll need to address. We'll need to address the mind level. We'll need to address the body, that programmed muscle memory, and we'll need to address the biology level because that has taken a hit now that it's been decades that we've had these trauma responses. So it'll give you all of the pieces that you will need to incorporate to have the lasting change that you want.
Okay. And this is what you went through. You share your story in there as well about going through just that.
Yeah, I share my story throughout of even like how I discovered this piece that I share in this chapter. Well, this is how I discovered it. Brain inflammation or the biochemical imbalances or the oxidative stress or the somatic work or the inner child work. I share it all of why that is essential and how I came to see that it was essential, and then how to incorporate it, how to integrate it all so that it's a cohesive process that we're following, as opposed to, well, let's, I don't know, throw anything. Let's, throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what we try. It's like, no, like we can be so much more precise and deliberate and intentional about our healing journey. And when we can do that, it allows us to actually go faster, but in a safe way. Not because we're making cuts or doing quick fixes, but because we're actually giving the body exactly what it needs at the right time that it needs it and in the right order that it needs it.
Fascinating work.
It's really cool.
It is cool. It is cool. So your book's available online. I'll stick a link in the show notes for everyone. How else can people reach out to you, Aimie?
I would love for them to find me. Come find me at biologyoftrauma.com. I have some guides there, like steps to identify and heal trauma. I also have an attachment trauma roadmap and an attachment pain guide. So different resources that they can geek out over and learn deeper insights about themselves, and find the resources even associated with the book that I've got inside the book for them to be able to dig deeper into.
Fun stuff, huh? Very cool.
Really, the body is a fascinating and we can learn so much about its inner workings and be able to work with it rather than against it.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's well over my head, but it makes sense. You've just made a lot more sense about my body. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. It's really, really important work as well.
Appreciate that, Aimie. Thank you for coming on the show. Everyone listening out there, make sure you reach out to Aimie. Links will be in the show notes at the Hidden Why podcast. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. So there you have it. I was moved by our conversation, really insightful. I got a lot of learnings out of this episode, and I hope you did as well. Again, all the show notes at thehiddenwhy.com. So please check it out there. I am in the process of relaunching the website too, so watch this space. It's going to be a simpler sort of format with the podcast, any books, any things that I'm working on, and of course an opportunity to work with me as well. So if you're looking to live life more fully, have more meaning and find more joy, then please reach out to me. I'd love to set up a consultation with yourself and have that conversation. See where we can take you in this beautiful world that we live in. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Aimie Apigian. And make sure you pick up a copy of her book as well, guys. It's a really insightful read. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See ya.